If there was a mechanical process behind the creation of story, like some kind of fantastical machine, the kind that H.G. Wells might be proud of, we might want to recognise precisely the components at play, especially if we want to take it for a spin or build our own. Vocabulary gives us the tools to join the conversation and to begin a working knowledge. Moreover, it gives us the most accurate language with which to express our thoughts. This introduction then is about establishing some of the vocabulary behind building story. We'll look at some of the component parts to filmmaking and storytelling in order to see how they build together to make the bigger picture. Imagine an archery target with a bullseye, the heart of the story. It's at the centre. It's a shot that's impossible to take. The actions, events, locations and characters of your story all appear on that target in a spattering of arrows that are pinned in place. When your ideas strike the target, some will be better shots than others. Where precisely your arrows land will be your personal take and telling. In order to tell a universal tale and reach a wide audience, you will need to create a spread that surrounds the centre. Imagine if all your arrows were grouped to the top right, for example, or missed the target altogether. It would be very hard for anyone other than you to know what you were aiming at. Before we're through with this Jaws bite, we'll use our new tools to deconstruct a target full of arrows in order to see how the ideas and actions of the film communicate the story. We are going to need some basic vocabulary to organise and better communicate our ideas. Filmmaking units start with the shot as the smallest component of film. The largest unit is the film itself. These are physical units, like building blocks. You roll the camera, you create the shot. You edit these shots together to make the film. You will put the shots of your film into an order according to your storytelling. This is the themes and ideas that you wish to convey. This organisation gives you structure, the pattern or rhythm of your film. Some people will say that structure is simply what the character wants. I would say that this is overly simplistic. Moreover, structure is the crafting of the technique of screenwriting. It is the when, how and why your characters act in order to create a bigger sense of meaning. A story is like a riddle. It guides the audience through the various trials of the protagonist in order to solve a puzzle and bring about an epiphany, or a transition of values for the audience at the exact same moment as the transformation of the hero. As the audience, we then experience their same happiness or sadness as our own emotion, having travelled the self-same journey. Through their eyes, we are moved to understand the world anew. In the book Story, Robert McKee writes that a beat is the smallest element of structure. In the same way that physically shots build films, structurally beats build scenes. Because of this relationship, it makes sense to explain one with respect to the other. A beat is an exchange of behaviour. It is two forces in opposition, action versus reaction. Beat by beat, these changing behaviours will shape the turning of a scene and bring order from chaos. Like the settling of a small argument as part of a larger debate, this is the outcome of the film. Imagine the scene. Baby, 14 months, is cooing, is holding its favourite unicorn toy. Action, the unicorn is taken and held beyond baby's grasp. Reaction, baby stops cooing, eyes wide, its head jerks and bobbles about, it strains to reach for its toy back. This is a beat. The unicorn is stolen, the response is baby's surprise. Now, before these implications settle for baby, let's imagine the next shot. Action, the unicorn is returned. Reaction, baby clings to it tightly, kicks its legs and giggles. Action versus reaction. Note how the emotional response is elevated. Now, in the next shot, the unicorn is snatched away and hidden from view. Baby fits and starts, then flails about screaming. Another beat. Action versus reaction. The emotion is elevated to breaking point. Finally, the unicorn is returned. This time, however, baby continues to cry. The scene has turned. Beats begin lightly, almost comically, then progress rapidly. Each action-reaction tops the previous exchange. David Mamet states that it's not the dramatist's task to create confrontation or chaos, but rather to create order. Start with a disordering event and let the beat be about the attempt to restore order. Drama continues until the disordered state has been brought to rest. This is where rest is establishing what has changed, the moral and/or emotional outcome of the scene. The language of structure is grey at best. I found that perhaps the best way to approach building a working toolset or vocabulary is to be open in your interpretation but clear in your intent. By reading successful scripts, you can build a working knowledge through exploration and learning of requirements of the component parts. All authors on the subject have nuance and variation in how they define the tools of structure. By reading across the subject, you will either refine your own personal practice or adopt someone else's. It will come as no surprise then that there is a more physical use for both the terms beat and scene. You will need to be aware that outside of the technicality of structure, a beat is often used to define a moment in time. For example, exterior, boat deck, day. The sun is shining, the wind kicks spray across the bow. A beat, John tightens the starboard sheet. In the practice of screenwriting, we use the words to occupy the page and account for time spent, even when there is no action. Similarly, we use the term scene to physically account for a new location or time of day. In both live action and animation, there is associated cost with each and every new scene. Identifying these will assist the production by helping to cost the making of a film in order to assess its viability. Sid Fields identifies two consistencies, place and time, that are necessary to hold things in context. Physically, if you change either place or time, it becomes a new scene. Why? Because each time you change one of these elements, you must change the lighting and therefore almost always the camera placement, which means adjusting dolly tracks, electrical equipment, and many other things. So you can see that creating a new scene is by far more expensive than creating a new shot. Animation script assumes the same format as film, whereby a new scene will often require at least a new layout. Structurally, McKee identifies a scene as an action through conflict, in more or less continuous time and space, which turns the value charge condition of a character's life on at least one value, with a degree of perceptible significance. That is to say, within a scene, the philosophical and/or emotional values at play are changed perceptibly for the character we are following. That is the character with whom the audience is aligned. David Mamet regards a scene as a short film or documentary. The shots of the scene are, in his words, a succession of images juxtaposed so that the contrast between the images moves the story forward in the mind of the audience. For Mamet, everything in the scene is about the through line of the scene. In the same way that the scene creates order by turning the values of the scene to reveal the change within the scene, the through line is the actions taken to achieve the super objective, the change within the scene. Or, more simply, the order brought about through achieving what our character wants. A sequence is a series of scenes connected by a single idea with a definite beginning, middle, and end. Where scenes build relatively minor yet significant change, the resolution of a capping scene of a sequence delivers a more powerful, determinate change. This is a bigger transformation drawn and justified within the debate of the story whole. Like a scene, a sequence will be designed to move the story forward through the eye of a turning point, which is the reversal or deepening of the stakes of the film in line with the outcome of the action. Why are turning points important? As an audience, we experience emotion when the storytelling takes us through a transition of values. The bigger the transition, the bigger the meaning, the bigger the emotional release, through surprise, curiosity, insight, and a new direction. To map out the turning points of a film or story is to reveal the structure at play. The nested, shifting values at stake become more meaningful as the force of the global debate increases. In the same way that the change at the close of a sequence is more powerful than the change within a scene, the impact of change is greater still as the act concludes or the midpoint is established. Our greatest moments of storytelling are where the magnitude and momentum of change resolves with the most meaning. These are the moments within the journey that bring our hero and our audience to solve the puzzle at the heart of the story. Before we look at an example film, I'd like to briefly discuss plot and story. Mostly, when asked what a film is about, the answer will be a commentary of the plot, a list of events that start with the opening and finish at the climax. I would argue that what a film is about is the values inherent in the actions that shape the plot. Different stories can be set to the same plot. They will shine a light on the different parts of a journey. For example, a biography can be framed in many different ways. However, by focusing on a selection of events, the author will simplify the broader life plot in order to tell a specific story. The story is a discussion point and the point of view behind why an author writes. Some plots will work to assist some stories better than others. In the interests of highlighting a template to learn from, I would advocate that many successful screenplays are conjured from 5 different ingredients. These you will learn and discover will create the heart of your storytelling and ultimately what your story is about. 1 and 2 are the dominant and passive philosophical values. These are the 2 sides of the moral debate and the lesson of the piece. 3 and 4 are the dominant and passive emotional values. These are the personal and internal stakes and usually along the lines of something like romantic love, friendship, or self-belief. Typically and simplistically, the hero's task is to turn the stakes of the story world and bring the passive underdog values to dominance. 5 is the character flaw which the protagonist will need to overcome in order to do all of that. The plot, simply put, is the mechanism or vehicle to bring the stakes together and facilitate the debate and outcome. However, the plot is not without imagination and sparkle. After all, it's the marvellous distraction that disguises and delivers our moral lesson. And the gratifying warm and fuzzy payoff that the audience receives as the puzzle penny drops is designed to lock in the lesson and ensure that the audience will come back for more. We've all seen the same stories played out time and time again. Some writers are so embroiled by the particular debates that they spend their whole careers writing the same story over and over. It will not be the same account of events, however. What will change is the plot and the metaphor, a new way to shine light on an old problem.